There's an onion sitting in your pantry right now. Go look after this video. Somewhere in that mesh bag, one of them has a green shoot pushing out the top, soft on one side, and you've already decided it's garbage. You'll toss it in the trash this week with the coffee grounds. Maybe a potato in there too, gone wrinkled, covered in those pale little sprouts. Out it goes. And here's what nobody ever told you. You just threw away 4 onions. You threw away 10 pounds of potatoes. You've been doing it every month for 30, 40 years. Add that up over a lifetime, and you've hauled a whole garden out to the curb, 20 cents at a time, while the seed racks at the store charge you $4 for a paper packet with 30 seeds in it. That's not your fault. Nobody taught you. Your grandmother knew it. Her mother knew it. Somewhere between her kitchen and yours, the knowledge just stopped getting passed down. And there's a reason it stopped. We'll get to that before we're done today. My name is Walter Hayes. I'm 68 years old, and I farm the same Ozark ground in Missouri that my grandfather worked back in the 1940s. He raised 7 kids through some lean years, and I can tell you the man never once bought a packet of seeds. Not once. The kitchen was the seed store. Today, I'm going to show you how that works. 10 crops. Every one of them starts with something already in your house or free for the asking. Some pay you back in 10 days. Some fill a pantry shelf for a whole winter. Total cost, maybe $2. And that's if you're careless. Now listen, number 9 on this list is something you cut off and throw in the trash almost every week. And if you cut it a different way, it turns into 4 new plants. I'd bet good money you've never heard it. Don't you leave before we get there. Let's get into it. Number 1, green onions. We start here because I want you to win this week, not next summer. Take the green onions from the store, the ones with the little white roots still on the bottom, and instead of throwing those root ends away, stand them in a juice glass with an inch of water on the windowsill. That's it. In 3 days, you'll see new green coming up. In 10 days, you're cutting fresh tops for your eggs. The roots are still alive when you buy them. All they ever needed was water and light, and the plant picks up right where it left off. You can cut them back 3, maybe 4 times in water before they run out of steam. Most folks stop there, and that's the mistake. The water trick is the appetizer. The real move is this. After the second cutting, plant those rooted bottoms in soil outside or in a pot, about an inch deep. In the ground, they don't run out of steam. They thicken up, they divide, and if you let a couple of them flower and go to seed, they'll scatter themselves and come back on their own. Any zone, any month the ground isn't frozen, $1, $2 bunch. I planted some by the back step years ago, and Margaret still cuts from that patch. Never bought another bunch since. Number 2, garlic. This one is the closest thing to a savings account I know of that you can eat. 1 bulb from the grocery store comes apart into 8, 10, 12 cloves. Every single clove is a complete plant waiting to happen. Push each one into the soil pointed end up, about 2 inches deep, 6 inches apart, and walk away. Next summer, every clove you planted is a whole new bulb. Do that math with me. 1 bulb becomes 10. Plant those 10 next fall, and you're holding 100 bulbs the year after. That's more garlic than Margaret and I used in 2 years, from $1 one time. The mistake people make is planting it in spring. Garlic wants to go in the ground in October, around the first frost. It needs to sit through the cold. That chill is what tells the clove to split into a full bulb instead of growing one lonely round. Up north in zone 4 or 5, plant a little earlier and mulch it with a few inches of straw. Down south in zone 8 or 9, stick the bulb in the refrigerator for 6 weeks first and plant around Thanksgiving. The green shoots come up through the snow like nothing you've ever seen. And when you harvest, don't toss those tender green stalks. They cook up like a mild scallion. Old farm kitchens wasted nothing. Now, while we're standing in the pantry, somebody watching this is wondering what all this knowledge costs, because everything costs something these days. The spray costs $30 a season. The plants at the garden center cost $60 every April. This channel costs you nothing. Subscribing is free, and it may be the smartest thing you do in the garden all week, because we do this almost every day. The old way, the cheap way, the way that holds up. That's the whole arrangement. Number 3, potatoes. That wrinkled sprouting potato you were about to throw out is seed stock, and farmers have planted exactly that for 200 years. Cut it into chunks, each chunk with at least one eye, one sprout on it. Let the cut pieces sit out for a day or two so the cut skin's over, then plant them 4 inches deep, a foot apart. Once the soil isn't cold and soggy, around here that's late March. Up in Minnesota or Maine, it's closer to May, and your harvest runs a few weeks behind mine. I'll be straight with you about 2 things, because that's the only way I know how to talk. First, some store potatoes get treated with a sprout inhibitor so they're slow to wake up. If yours just sits there, the organic ones almost always sprout fine, and a potato that's already sprouting in your pantry has obviously beaten the treatment anyway. Second, and this one matters, sweet potato leaves are good eating. Regular potato leaves are not. They're poison, same family as nightshade. You eat what's underground and nothing else, and you keep dogs from chewing the vines. Now, if your knees don't bend like they used to, plant your chunks in a 5-gallon bucket or an old feed sack instead of the ground. Come harvest, you don't dig. You just tip it over. Each chunk pays you back 5 to 10 new potatoes. Number 4, sweet potatoes. Different animal entirely, and even more generous. You don't cut these up. You make slips. Set a sweet potato halfway down in a jar of water, toothpicks holding it up, on a warm windowsill. In a few weeks it covers itself in purple-green shoots. When a shoot reaches 5 or 6 inches, twist it off and stand it in its own glass of water. It roots in days. Each potato gives you 10, 15, 20 slips, and every slip is a full plant. Here's where most folks go wrong. They plant the slips out too early. Sweet potatoes are a hot weather crop. They want soil that's truly warm. June in most of the country, late May down south, and up in zone 4 or 5, you grow them under black plastic or in a big dark tub that holds the heat. And you pick a short-season variety mindset. Smaller, but still worth it. Give each plant 3 feet, because the vines run, and those vines earn their keep twice. The leaves cook like spinach all summer, these you can eat, and the foliage blankets the ground so thick that weeds give up underneath it. My grandfather grew them on the eroded bank behind the barn just to hold the soil. 4 months after planting, each slip hands you 3 to 8 sweet potatoes, usually bigger than the one you started with. Number 5, celery. This one Margaret showed me, and I'll admit I didn't believe her until I watched it happen on our own windowsill. When you cut up a head of celery, you slice off that solid white base, 2 inches or so, and throw it away. Don't. Set that base cut side up in a shallow dish with 1/2 inch of water. Change the water every couple of days. Within a week, tiny yellow-green leaves rise up out of the dead center of the thing, like it never got the news. After 2 weeks, when you see roots starting around the bottom edge, tuck it into soil with just the new growth showing. The base you bought already holds the plant's whole engine room. The crown and the stalks were only ever leaves. Cut the leaves, the crown simply makes more. The mistake is expecting the fat, blanched supermarket stalks. You won't get those. Homegrown celery from a base comes back thinner, darker, and about twice as strong in flavor, which is exactly what you want for soup and stuffing. Keep it watered, celery sulks in dry soil. Give it part shade in hot country, and it'll cut and come again for months. Romaine lettuce bottoms do the same trick in water faster if you want a second windowsill project going. Number 6, tomatoes, and you've got 2 free doors into these. The first door is somebody else's garden. Tomato plants grow little side shoots called suckers, right in the joint where a branch meets the main stem, and good growers pinch them off and drop them in the dirt all summer long. Every one of those suckers, stuck 5 inches deep in moist soil and kept shaded for a week, becomes a complete plant that fruits the same season. Ask any neighbor with tomatoes. They'll hand you a dozen and think you're doing them the favor. The second door is the tomato itself. Squeeze the seeds out of a good-tasting one. Now, here's the part that trips everybody up. That clear jelly around each seed actually stops the seed from sprouting. That's nature's way of keeping seeds from growing inside the fruit. So rinse them in a strainer under cold water until the jelly's gone. Dry them on a plate for a week and plant them a ½ inch deep when nights stay above 50. They'll come up in under 2 weeks. Folks try this without rinsing. Nothing grows. And they walk away thinking the whole idea was a fairy tale. It wasn't. One step was missing. One ripe tomato carries 100 seeds. You'll never use them all. We're past the halfway mark now, and the best math on this list is still ahead of you. Number 9 is coming. The thing you throw away every week that turns into 4 plants. And right behind it, the one that can fill a pantry shelf until spring. Stay with me. Number 7, dried beans. Walk to your own cupboard. That $2 bag of pinto beans, black beans, or whole dried peas is not food. Well, it is, but it's also 500 seeds. The same seeds the rack at the garden center sells you 30 of for $4. A dried bean is the seed. Nothing was done to it but drying. Soak a handful overnight so they wake up, then plant them an inch deep after your last frost, when the soil's warm. Mid-May here in Missouri. Early June up north. Plant extra, because grocery beans sat on a shelf for who knows how long, and not everyone will come up. The ones that do will each give you dozens of pods, and every pod holds 4 or 5 new beans. Now, people always want to know, will it be a low bush or a tall climbing vine? Because the bag doesn't say. Here's the old trick. Plant 6 beans in a pot 2 weeks early and watch them. If they start reaching and twisting by 8 inches tall, they're climbers and they want a pole or a fence. If they sit there squat and bushy, they're bush beans and they need nothing. The old people knew this because they had to. A jar of saved beans got many a family through a Missouri winter. Number 8, kitchen herbs. The fresh herb shelf at the grocery store is a plant nursery wearing a disguise. Basil, mint, oregano, sage. One cut bundle, $3, becomes plants for the rest of your life. Pick a stem about 4 inches long. Strip the leaves off the bottom half. You'll see little bumps at each spot where a leaf grew. Those bumps are nodes, and they're packed with cells that turn into roots the moment they touch water. Stand the stem in a glass on the windowsill out of harsh sun and change the water every 2 days. Basil shows white roots in under a week. When the roots are an inch long, pot it up. Here's where most folks go wrong. They let the cutting flower. The minute an herb blooms, it quits making leaves and starts making seeds, and the flavor goes bitter. Pinch the tops every week or two, and the plant stays young and bushy for months. One warning, and it's earned. Mint never goes in the ground. Mint goes in a pot always, or in 3 years it owns your whole bed and half the lawn. Keep basil inside after September. Mint, oregano, and sage will winter outdoors in zones 5 and up. From one plant you cut more starts, and from those, more. You will never buy basil again. Number 9. Here's the one I promised you, and I held it back because nobody believes it until they see it. The cabbage core. Every week, somebody in your house cuts up a head of cabbage for slaw or soup, gets down to that hard white cone in the middle, and throws it in the trash. That core is the only part of the cabbage that's actually alive. It's the stem. The whole growing engine of the plant, packed with buds you can't see. Take that core and cut it lengthwise into 4 quarters, top to bottom, so every quarter keeps a piece of the wide base. Set the quarters in a shallow dish of water, cut sides down, on the windowsill. Inside a week, each one pushes out crinkled little leaves of its own. When roots show along the bottom edges, plant each quarter in soil. 1 head of cabbage you already ate. 4 new plants in the ground. Cabbage loves cool weather, so set them out in early spring or late summer, not the July furnace, and give them sun and steady water. I'll be straight with you on what to expect. Some quarters will roll up a proper head for you, small and sweet. Others just produce loose, open leaves. Either way, it all cooks up fine, and either way, it cost you nothing. Margaret's mother did this through the 50s and called it getting 2 suppers out of 1 cabbage. The first time I watched a bare white core leaf out on our kitchen windowsill, I stood there like a man watching a card trick. Number 10. Pumpkins and winter squash. I saved this one for last because it's the prettiest payoff on the whole list. Every pumpkin you carve in October, every butternut and acorn squash you roast, is carrying 100 seeds or more. And unlike a lot of modern vegetables, most of these still grow true enough to be well worth planting. Scoop the seeds, rinse the strings off, and spread them on a plate to dry for a week or 2 until they snap instead of bend. Store them in a paper envelope, not plastic. Plastic traps moisture, and moisture means mold. And wait for late spring. When nights stay warm, plant 3 seeds an inch deep in a little hill of soil. 1 hill per 6 feet, because these vines travel. Keep the strongest seedling per hill. 1 healthy plant will hand you 3 to 8 squash, and here's the part that mattered most to the old-timers. A cured butternut keeps 3 or 4 months on a cool shelf with no canning, no freezer, no work at all. My grandfather's cellar had a plank shelf along the north wall, and by November it sagged with squash, and that shelf was still feeding the family in March. Come October, you'll have a porch rail lined with pumpkins you grew from one you bought, and the seeds inside those are next year already paid for. Before the wrap-up, do one thing for me. Put your state or your USDA zone, if you know it, down in the comments. Just that. Minnesota, Georgia, Zone 7. I read everyone, And what you tell me decides what we cover next, because the right planting week in Mississippi is the wrong one in Michigan, and I'd rather talk to where you actually live. Now let's sort all 10 by the problem you've actually got. If you want something on the table this month, go with the green onions and the celery base, both working on your windowsill by Sunday. If your knees and back have opinions about digging, run the potatoes in buckets, the herbs in pots by the door, and the celery in a planter. None of it ever asks you to kneel. If you're feeding more than 2 and watching every dollar, the dried beans, the potatoes, and the sweet potatoes are your heavy haulers. Those 3 alone can carry a family's worth of food off a few dollars. If you want to plant once and stop thinking about it, garlic in October and green onions left to reseed will both come back without being asked. And if what you really want is a full pantry in January, the winter squash on the shelf and a braid of your own garlic hanging by the stove will get you there. One more thing before we finish, because I told you we'd get to it. Why did nobody teach you any of this? Your great-grandmother knew every trick on this list. Here's the plain answer. Nobody had to hide it. The incentives did the quiet work all by themselves. A seed company can't sell a packet to the man who plants his own pantry. A garden center doesn't profit twice off the woman whose garlic comes back every year on its own. There's simply no money in teaching people things that only need to be bought once. So the knowledge didn't get banned. It just stopped being repeated. And anything that stops being repeated for 2 generations disappears. And one warning I owe you, because some videos on this subject hand out advice I won't repeat. You'll hear that the white lacy flowers along the roadside are wild carrot, free seeds for the taking. Leave them alone. Wild carrot has a look-alike called poison hemlock, growing in the same ditches, blooming the same white, and hemlock can kill a grown man. I've walked past both my whole life, and I still wouldn't bet my supper on telling them apart at a glance. If you want free carrot seed, let 2 or 3 carrots in your own garden stand unharvested. The second year, they'll throw up that same white umbrella in a place where you know exactly what it is and seed your patch for free. Same result. None of the risk. Your task this week is simple, and it costs nothing. Before Sunday, go through your pantry and your refrigerator and pull out everything that's sprouting or rooting. The soft onion, the wrinkled potato, the garlic with green tips, the celery base from supper. Set them all on the counter in one place and just look at them. That's not waste on your counter. That's your starter garden, and you already paid for it. And while you're at it, answer me this down below. Did your mother or your grandmother regrow anything in the kitchen? A jar on the sill, a pit on toothpicks, a core in a saucer. Tell me what it was. Those little family tricks are exactly the kind of knowledge that dies when nobody writes it down, and I read every single one. Next time, we're staying right in this lane. The fall garden you can still plant late, the one the seed racks never mention because it's all crops you already own. It follows straight from today, so keep that counter full. That's the old garden way. I'll see you in the garden.